Hello, and welcome to the Is Tyrese Halliburton the clutchest player in the history of basketball podcast, also known as Away Game. This is episode 3. I am your co host, Ron Pierpali, and with me, as always, is my co host, the voice of the Southern Oregon Raiders football team, Kyle Clements. Kyle, how have you been? I know it's been a while.
Hey, I'm doing great. It's been quite a while, Duran. There's been a lot has transpired in the sports world lately. We
Yeah,
had
we
the
had to
draft.
we had to cut like
We've
five
we've
different
almost made it.
topics. Yeah.
We've almost made it all the way through NBA playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what, Duran and my friend group that we have a group chat and it's mainly sports 24/7. But we say this every year in June that the next few months are going to suck. Like they are really going to suck. I mean, June
Yeah.
and July are no joke. July is just awful for sports. August is no better. I guess you get the Hall of Fame game in there, but yeah, July's tough, and we're almost there.
Yeah, the funny part is that every year after the Super Bowl, we talk about how much that sports are going to suck for the next few months. But the funny part is that, we're a football centric podcast, like most of them are. But the funny part is that the day after the Super Bowl is not the most depressing game day of the NFL year, even though it is the furthest point from the next official NFL game taking place. Day after the Super Bowl, guys are getting fired, guys are getting hired. You're starting to formulate your draft opinions, seeing, it's like, okay, well, these guys landed here, so they're going to take this guy with this pick and, maybe get this guy in the third round, et cetera. Coaches, getting hired. I already went all. So, yeah, there's all that. It's really, like you said, June and July, where it's like, okay, mini camps are kind of starting. Um, we haven't actually gotten to spring practice before the season, but it's like rosters are set, coaches are set, staffs are set, offices are set. There's nothing left to talk about unless a story leaks like the Caleb Williams story, like we're going to talk about later. It's a brutal part of the year, but thankfully we do have the NBA Finals to get to. We're also later going to be looking at Rodgers to the Steelers, which finally happened. Don't what took them so long. Quick look at some post draft roster looks. Now that these teams are finalized, we'll see how we feel about them. And yeah, lastly, we will be talking about the Caleb Williams story because that's one of those ones where you're surprised it ever actually broke.
I am. I would love as well, Durant, to just start with this Caleb Williams story since we're on the topic of it.
Yeah, why not?
Um, I really want to just break this down because this is an incredible story. I mean, you never hear about this. And for the record,
Mm-hmm.
for what it's worth, Duran, I am almost positive there's other players who have been drafted to teams who have felt this way.
Yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
even more strongly than Caleb felt about going to Chicago. But the story didn't break because it would be bad PR.
Oh yeah,
I
do you think
thought
Trevor
Caleb
wanted to go to the Jags? Probably not.
yeah, I thought Caleb handled this with great maturity as well. He came out in a press conference the day after. He recognized the story was out. He mentioned the story and he said that that was the past, and he's looking forward to working with Coach Johnson in trying to win a Super Bowl. So I thought it showed great maturity from Caleb. Yeah, can you blame the guy, Duran? The Bears have been such a dumpster fire of an organization, and I am you know what? This will probably be a make or break year for Ryan Poles, their general manager, as well. So I don't hold anything against Caleb for not wanting to go to Chicago. It's unfortunate for him and his camp that the story actually broke, that he didn't want to go there. But besides that, I mean, it's not like he got drafted by, let's say, I don't know, the Packers, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
the Eagles or the Chiefs, he got drafted by the damn Bears. So I can't hold this against him. And I think he's going to be pretty successful in year two. It is wild, some of the quotes that came out of that story, though, that he was not impressed with Eberflus. And in the meetings that he had with Coach Eberflus, his father wasn't impressed with Eberflus.
Mm-hmm.
I think his dad had a crazy quote in that article that it was high school play design by Eberflus. I'll have to
Yeah.
go back and make sure that's the actual quote. But yeah, all in all, crazy story. Did not expect this. Kind of came out of left field.
Yeah, it certainly did, and I was thinking about it while you were talking, and the thing that kind of came to is that there must have been an agreement between the writer of this book about this process and between the Williams family that this only breaks if Eberflus is gone, because this breaks about Eberflus. This story breaks and Eberflus is still the head coach, and what's his name, Shane Waldron is still the OC, and their season's dead before the draft.
Yep,
Like,
absolutely. It's
yeah,
that before the draft.
it's there's absolutely no, and the team turns on him. And frankly, I'm surprised you're not hearing more blowback from the guys who played with Justin Fields the year before. It doesn't leave a negative impression of Caleb for me, because I think the reality of the situation is what you said, which is that this probably happens with quarterbacks all the time who are not happy to be drafted to not exactly dynastic situations, and their teammates probably know about it too. But for it to break publicly it's absolutely unprecedented in NFL history, and it makes the ongoing Caleb Williams story as unprecedented as any player. It's really amazing to think of, and the one thing I will say is that I probably would have fought a little bit harder to prevent it from coming out anyway, because of the pressure it 100% puts on Caleb to perform well, and the fact that in spite of this being his second year, essentially a second rookie year because they're having to change systems, it puts all the pressure on him and not the coach, to succeed, which is a very bad position for a player to be in who's not already on a large contract. It's Caleb has consistently invited eyes, attention and criticism, and thankfully he doesn't ever seem to have shied away from criticism either. But he seems to have more openly said, like, put the load on my shoulders than just about any quarterback I can possibly remember. It's an absolutely fascinating story, and I'll be interested to see how it goes, especially those Vikings games. I mean, the commentators are going to be talking about how the Caleb Williams quotes about loving the Vikings coach whose name escapes me,
Yes,
Kevin O'Connell.
yes, he
Yeah.
loved him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, Deron? That's probably a tough pill for Bears fans to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a division rival, and I think Caleb knew he wasn't going to fall to Minnesota. And
I do think
um,
I do think that if that quote had been about the Packers, that he'd be done, like he'd be traded. There.
it would definitely be a bit more of a situation. I
Yeah.
agree with you. It would. I don't know to the extent that he would get traded though, but it would be close. I wouldn't be shocked.
It would be
Uh,
considered, because unless he came out and was Patrick Mahomes immediately on week one, the fans would turn on him by the end of week one if he came out with that quote about the Packers coach, regardless
sure.
of the coaching situation. I mean, that's because that's not even Ravens Steelers. I was going to make a Ravens Steelers comparison. It's Packers Bears. Packers Vikings.
Yeah,
Sorry, Bears Vikings is a thing because it's a divisional thing, but if it had touched that lightning rod of the oldest rivalry in NFL history, then I think it would have blown up on them, especially considering the controversy from switching over from Justin Fields in the first place.
right. No, you're absolutely correct. And I guess just to
Mm-hmm.
wrap this up and move on. You think about the what Ryan Poles has done with the Bears so far, and the decision to hire Eberflus and Waldron, and it lands flat on its face. And I can't help but think, is this, is this going to be another Matt Jones situation where Caleb plays for a bunch of different offensive coordinators? Matt Jones, Durant had three offensive coordinators in his first 3 years in the league. He's had four different offensive coordinators, I believe now, or maybe that number's still three, but he's had a different offensive coordinator every year he's been in the league. I think with Ben Johnson at the helm now, there will be I would hope some more stability surrounding Caleb, but things happen in the NFL that are unprecedented all the time. And I was going to ask you just to wrap this up: is this the biggest story of a player not wanting to play for a team since Eli Manning pulled his stunt on draft night?
Oh, I think it's bigger than that. And now granted, here's the thing. It to say, oh, it's even bigger than that. It sounds like I'm trying to blow it up like it's the biggest story of all time. There's really only been there's less than 5 really famous stories. Okay, okay, at least of quarterbacks. There's very, very few famous stories of quarterbacks going with, near the top pick who were openly vocal and said, I don't want to play for that team. It was Elway who did it to the Colts, and then the Colts ended up moving. Thanks, John. And then it was Eli. Oh, yeah, and then it was Eli with the going from the Chargers to the Giants and giving them Phillip
Yep.
Rivers. So there's really only about, I mean, when it comes to quarterbacks with high draft picks, there's basically only about 3 of these stories. I do think it's the biggest of the 3, just because with what Elway did, it killed the drama immediately. It's like, hey, I'm not going there. You need to send me somewhere else, and they did. Denver ended up getting him, and then he played for Denver his entire career. And there was not a whole lot of drama in the story between him and Denver, aside from not winning the Super Bowl for all those years. But this is way bigger. I mean, he actually ends up on the team, and it's they're the publicity around the Williams family is consistently playing with fire when it comes to his public perception.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Moving on, Rodgers to the Steelers. Does this does this change your impression of the team that the Steelers are? What do you think it says about Tomlin's stability as head coach that this that he's waited this long for Aaron to sign? What's your take on this?
Yeah, the first thing that jumps to my mind, Teron, is this going to start the end of the Mike Tomlin era in Pittsburgh? Is this going to is this kind of the canary in the coal mine, if you will, for Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh? Because this Steelers team, as it's built right now, will win 8 or 9 games next season, may or may not sneak into the postseason. They're not winning a playoff game. The last time Aaron Rodgers was good, I don't think people had heard of the word COVID yet, right? So we're going on 5 or 6 years since he's been an adequate quarterback for a team. Uh, yeah, it doesn't change anything. Vegas agrees with me that it doesn't change anything. Their Super Bowl odds did not move a cent in either direction, Duran.
Wow.
It did not move even the tiniest amount up or down. So,
Did their regular
uh,
season win total change?
right, nothing changed.
Oh my God, that's so
Nothing changed.
okay. Well,
Vegas thinks he's cooked, and I
Vegas
think
thinks
he
he's
is
cooked,
too.
but I think Vegas thinks he's cooked, but I guess this doesn't really change anything about the story, but I guess this would also tell you that Vegas did their numbers on Pittsburgh, knowing what pretty much everybody in sports media was saying for so
Yeah,
many
it
months,
was
which
probably baked in. It was
yeah,
probably baked
it's
in.
probably baked in. So it's not like he's a non-addition. It's just that whatever amount of games they thought they were going to win with him is exactly how many games they're going to win now that he's signed because they already thought he was going to sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's man. I tell you what, this could be a sad way to go out for both of these guys
It
because
could be it could be a really I mean, can you imagine right now a December game
mm-hmm,
at Acrisure Stadium? It's freezing. Could you imagine it's 38-3, Baltimore's on top, maybe it's a Monday night game
mm-hmm.
and Acrisure's emptying out in the third quarter and you've got Tomlin and Rogers standing side by side. I mean, can't you just picture it already?
It doesn't look good. And the sad part is that while Pittsburgh is not overwhelmingly talented on offense, they traded their best player for whatever reason. Um, the defense is excellent, and the biggest thing, and I used to be part of the Aaron Rodgers apology brigade back in 2014 and 15, like a lot of people were. But then, just years kept adding onto the calendar, and there was just more and more evidence of it. It used to be the thing is, oh man, can you imagine how successful Rodgers would be if he was playing with a defense as good as Brady's? He's played with like 4 or 5 great defenses by now, and hasn't
Yeah.
made in terms of playoffs. I mean, the 2020 and 2021 Packers were tremendously successful in the regular season, but they weren't great playoff teams, and they didn't change. Rodgers' style in the playoff didn't change to accommodate the fact that that he was playing with such great defenses, and and the key plays were missed at the key times. It just it kept happening, even though it's like for years people like me said, well, what if you gave Aaron Rodgers better support? And then they gave him better support, and he was maybe even worse in the playoffs. I do think he gets a little too much hate for the snow game that he played against the Niners because he was like reasonably good in that game and also ancient and playing in the cold, and he'd been, but he also said he wanted to play a home game at Lambeau, so it's just so many things. Tomlin, on the other hand, the thing with him has been that he's been saddled with the worst version of Ben Roethlisberger, and now he has a name brand at quarterback, and so it kind of is a similar ding to him where it's like, well, what if he gets this name brand quarterback and can't do anything with him because he doesn't actually, because he's a defensive coach and, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And he ends up taking the fall for a guy who is not really, is not a top 25 quarterback in the sport. This just has disaster written all over it. And, I have enough respect for the Steelers as an opponent to really hope this is not how this ends.
I mean, what's the best case scenario for the Steelers going into next season? What is the absolute ceiling? I would say 11 wins and an AFC divisional round appearance.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
then they're
I
and
mean
then and
that's
so
that's
what are they? Are they so now
that's their best case scenario.
they probably play Baltimore again.
And they would get curb stomped.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand the move. I'm really really shocked they didn't take Shador. Tomlin and the Sanders family are very very close. I was very shocked he didn't take Shador, especially when he had a chance to do so. I think in the third round, and they passed on him once again. So, I
maybe he's already mentally given up. And this is wild stuff to be saying about a coach, but we're a very small podcast, so whatever.
hey,
You know,
we'll say it. We'll say it.
that's
But I mean, is this the beginning of the end of Tomlin? Is this
well,
does he right? Does he go 2 years with Rodgers and then the Rooney family gives him a call and says thanks for everything you've done? I mean, is that how this ends?
I do think. Let's put it this way. Speaking of legacies and narratives are end up making a lot of this stuff simpler to talk about, insofar as a thing they used to say about Tomlin before he established the streak of no losing seasons and the team's always being good. They used to make fun of him that he could only win with oh god, he's a Hall of Fame coach, the guy who was coaching the Steelers before him.
Bill Cowher.
Bill Cowher, yes, I know the name well because it's for a completely different reason. Somehow I forgot it. Yeah, Bill Cowher. They used to make fun of him, saying that he can't win without Bill Cowher's team, basically because he won that Super Bowl in 2008. Only a year after Cowher retired, basically, if I remember the numbers correctly. But then he did, that kind of died down a little bit when he did at least make the Super Bowl in 2010, and that's when perception of Rodgers was much higher. And it's like, okay, well, you made it to the Super Bowl, you lost Aaron Rodgers, who cares? That stuff's coming back now. I've seen some videos from beat reporters for other teams, and the whole thing is in question now. People are talking about his inability to coach a wide receiver room, like his inability to control wild personalities on the team. Just the long-term lack of success in the playoffs in spite of regular season success. I've seen him called everything but a child of God, and I think that especially even if people think Aaron Rodgers is washed, if you can put the resume bullet point, manage to have a losing season with Aaron Rodgers on his resume, I think he's done for. I think the clamor from the fans will be too loud, and that like probably the most casual and most supportive fans will finally say, okay, yeah, no, this just isn't good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to know the temperature of Steelers Nation right now with
the
with
hardcores
this
have hated
move.
him for years. I mean, if urinating tree's anything to go by, and I think he is, this team has been unpopular with Steelers fans since at least 2018.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Tomlin, though, Duran, is going to get hired the second he's fired.
Are you
Someone's going
sure?
to pick. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think that if things go south with the Titans, I could see, the
Well, that's true.
Panthers,
Yeah,
the
there's
Falcons. There's a lot of organizations out there that would kill for an 8-win season.
okay. That's true. Okay, that you make a good point because there are too many teams. Okay, I'm sorry. No. I got to backtrack that. Bill Belichick didn't get hired. Bill
He didn't.
Belichick did not get hired. And now, granted, I get it. The perception inside of Patriot Nation is that All the other teams saw what Patriots fans saw, which is that he's done. But the thing is that it's like when it comes to a lot of these legacy coach guys, that's how a lot of the Ravens fans aren't that happy with Harbaugh either. And I have wondered that the part of the reason I've slowly turned on him a little bit is me wondering, it's like, if this guy got fired, would he really get hired in an instant? And maybe it's unfair to use Belichick as the example to prove or disprove that, but it has not gotten out of my head that only one team even interviewed him. All three of these guys are, defensive mastermind / player motivator type coaches who delegate a lot of the specific responsibilities. They're all a certain archetype of head coach, who, long story short, aren't play callers. I think there's a decent possibility that if Tomlin hit the market, a bunch of people would say, okay, great, enjoy the Hall of Fame, I'm going to go with somebody younger.
Sure, absolutely. I agree. I want to move on. I want to touch
Yeah.
on the draft for just a second, Duran. Uh, I love in sports. I've said it on this podcast, but I love in sports when mediocre teams take that leap and go get their guy, and that's what the Jags did with Travis Hunter. This is a franchise that has, I mean, everything working against it. So you have a stadium that's old. You have that's often half filled. You have a residency in London every single season, with the NFL trying to have an arranged marriage with you in the city of London. And you go out and get just a game breaker in what I think is who I think is going to be a Hall of Famer in Travis Hunter. I think the Jags scored big on this. I love the Liam Cohen hire as well. I think we've talked about the weird Duval press conference he had. He's a very awkward gentleman, of course, but
That
I
was
love what the
hilarious.
Jags did in this draft. They went out and got a game breaker. It's going to put cheats in seats, and it's a good move for the franchise.
If I ever get a soundboard for this show, that guy saying Duval is going to end up on the board.
Yeah.
That's as classic a moment recently as what's his wasn't it Lane Kiffin throwing on a southern accent?
Yep.
It's talking about family. Yeah, no, and I know you love this move because the last time I was on the radio, which I think was 2 or 3 weeks ago, you made sure to talk to me about this, how much you love this Travis Hunter move. Um, yeah, I mean the Jaguars are in a really bad spot. They, have to, because of the investment they made in the quarterback, they kind of have to make investments on offense to make that investment at quarterback worth it. Because like if you're not generating wins above replacement, like if your offense as a unit, in spite of a good quarterback, is not generating wins above replacement as a total offensive unit, then you are absolutely wasting money on the quarterback. So it kind of dictates that. That being said, yeah, it's not like that. It's not like there's any one team in that division that's dynastic. So I do hope for them. And, especially this is kind of a dumb thing to bring up. As an all elite wrestling fan, I am always kind of quietly hoping the Jaguars are good because it'll make the wrestling that much better.
Sure. While we're on the topic of the draft, wouldn't the Browns draft around look a lot cleaner if they had not taken Dylan Gabriel, who I'm actually a big fan of, but if they
Mm-hmm.
had just stuck with Shador, gotten Travis Hunter as well to go along with him, wouldn't that just look a lot better from the outside looking in?
Absolutely, especially yeah, no, I mean it makes them look unsure of both quarterbacks. It makes them look like they have two quarterbacks, which means they don't have a quarterback. So we'll see how training camp goes, and we'll see how the battle between these two players goes. But I wouldn't be surprised if you get the unfortunate report that they don't really know who's better, because um, that's how you build bad seasons. That's how you build bad seasons, is having a quarterback room where there's two guys who are roughly as good as each other and probably a lot different in terms of play style, and you're just not sure what's better to go with. The 2000 Ravens kind of had that. It's just that they also had the defense. It's and it also robs them of the other good thing that you're supposed to have when you're down that far the organizational ladder. When you are low enough in the draft that you can get quality quarterback picks, the entire idea is to test a guy, and if he's not good enough, I mean, very few teams actually do this, but the idea is, you test a guy, you just make him the starter immediately, and if he can't produce, you dump him, you take your next high pick, you get another damn quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And Ron, I just can't help but think: are the Browns just going to be bad forever? I mean, is there a light at the end of the tunnel for this franchise? Because these boneheaded decisions they make just capitulate. They snowball.
I
They snowball on top of one another. This franchise is in the deepest depths of hell, and I don't know how they get out.
I pretty much completely agree, especially because they're in what is consistently one of the most competitive divisions in football. And it used to be the thing that especially in the mid 2000s, the quarterback was so important that it was like if you don't have the best quarterback right now, you might as well just draft another guy. Um, I don't know what version of the Browns could they be where they don't have at least the third best quarterback in the division. Who is going to come along? What generational, like Arch Manning is going to come along and make it to where you are playing against Joe Burrow or playing against Lamar Jackson and legitimately thinking to yourself, yeah, I might have the better quarterback here. I just don't think it's
Yeah,
possible. And so, really, if I were the Browns, I would. If I were the Browns, I would be looking at that. And of course, I wouldn't say this out loud to the fans, but I'd just make it a point organizationally, like, hey, we're not trying in this window. There's, this division's too good. Tomlin's still around. Lamar is, one of the 10 best quarterbacks of all time. Maybe Joe Burrow is, the same, just minus all the All Pros and MVPs. So, I'd take a flyer.
yeah.
Or sorry, not take a flyer. I'd take a rain check if I were the Browns, which is, of course, incredibly tragic because the quarterback that they ditched is now competitive in the NFC South, which is just, it's such
Yeah.
a nightmare.
I mean,
I feel so terrible for Browns fans. I
it's
always
it's a
have.
nightmare, and it's funny. They used, in the late '90s and from I would say 2000 to about 2012.
Mm-hmm.
They were the lovable losers. With the brown helmets and playing on the all grass field, and now you look at them and you just kind of go yuck, like ew, almost. It's just a shift in the franchise. And maybe that's the Deshaun Watson signing or other things they've done, but now they're in a position where they've got Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, Kenny Pickett, and Deshaun Watson's hanging out in the locker room somewhere doing God knows what. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a fucking disaster. And I hate to curse, but it's warranted in this case because that third round pick, Durant,
Mm-hmm.
could have been a very, very good linebacker. And I know they got Schweizinger out of the draft out of UCLA, but that could have been a safety. That could have been a wide receiver. I mean, you can get good wide receivers in the third round.
And they need them.
Kyle Wilson from Washington State went in the third round of the New England Patriots. So it's a franchise that doesn't really know what it's doing. A very weird draft by Kevin Stefanski as well. I don't think this angle has been talked about enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what Stefanski is thinking, and he's been coach of the year in the NFL before. He has that award on his desk. So I'm
I think
not
he's been coach of the year twice.
Yeah, so I don't know if that Sanders or the Gabriel call came from the owners, saying, "Hey, draft this guy," or if this is actually what Stefanski wants. I have a hard time believing this is what Stefanski wants, and if it is, then he needs to be held accountable.
Well, and that, and I mean, you saw what they all. I mean, I don't know if you saw the footage, but you saw what they all looked like when they
The
actually
body
picked.
language, the
It was
body language
horrific.
was damning. The body language was damning, Duran.
Yeah, it was really, really terrible. And the funny and like they know they're on camera, so the lack of
I don't think they could help it.
yeah, exactly. It's like the lack of, I guess, accountability would be the word here for them to, not be seen doing that is absolutely incredible. And yeah, it's, and especially, I mean, the signing Deshaun is one thing, but it's, I mean, even before that, you have the thing of they were the worst franchise in football since being reinstated to the league in 1999 by a huge distance, and yet they seemed uncontent with making the divisional round and watching the Steelers slip on poop and winning the game. Like that was the last, oh no, that was the second to last season, but they had that happen, and then after they didn't improve on that immediately, they said we got to get rid of this Baker guy. There's they they treated it as if they'd been in the window for 4 years. It's like you guys just started competing, and now you're acting like, oh, we should have won Super Bowl by now. It's like you got to, it's a bad look. Again, I have every sympathy for Browns fans, especially because most of them, the vast majority of them, did not support the Deshaun Watson move at all. And they've been suffering for it. I cannot imagine what it's like to be a fan of that team, because like I can't imagine what it's like to be a fan of the Bengals, and then you have the Browns, who are like 3 times worse. So that's just about it.
It's just awful. It's just
Mm-hmm.
awful.
All right, and then that kind of comes back. Oh no, we skipped Pacers Thunder game one. You did actually get to see this. I only got to see like the very last seconds of it in the box scores. So tell me what this Pacers Thunder game was like to open the NBA playoffs. The Pacers go
Yeah,
up 1-0 in a shocker. And I think a lot of people thought that the Pacers would get one win in this series, but I don't think most people thought it was going to be in game one.
I thought this was going to be a sweep. I said
Yeah,
it on my show that I thought the Thunder are just they're just deeper than the Pacers. Their best players, I think, are better than the Pacers' best players.
absolutely.
But the Pacers just play so well together, and it's chaotic and it's fun, and it's fundamentally sound. Halliburton is so clutch. I think that's the third go-ahead shot in the last 10 seconds he has in this playoff run alone. And now all of a sudden, I'm in the camp of, hey, the Pacers might do this.
I think I'm reasonably certain I saw a stat, and maybe I should source this for YouTube, but that said he was 13 of 15 on shots, basically on clutch shots within like 4 points or something like that.
It's incredible,
Yeah.
and Rick Carlisle's done an excellent job with this group, and they go into OKC and they steal one, and now all of a sudden game two doesn't mean as much to Indiana. They can drop game two and still feel pretty good going into the final 5 games of the series.
Yeah, if it were to go 7 games, I'd kind of favor the Pacers just because of how clutch Halliburton has been. Not that OKC has been unclutch, but just Halliburton seems to be on the ultimate, Joe Flacco 2012 burner of being able to make the shot when it matters every single time. And that's an especially great superpower to have when usually he's their best player in the regular season, but Siakam has been outscoring him in the playoffs. The one thing that really stood out to me, and I will flatly admit this is just me looking at the box score, but OKC had one guy who scored 38, and the Pacers had like 5 guys who scored 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
They play well as a team. It's really fun to watch. I'm excited for game two. I'm definitely rooting for Indiana to pull this off. I also think it's great. It's two small market teams. And I think
yeah,
this is going to be the seventh year in a row we have had a new NBA champion, and I'm a fan of that as well. And whoever lifts it at the end, I'll be happy for. OKC, their first time in franchise history.
yep.
It's small market Indiana getting a chip. It would just feel right.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that. The funny thing is, I need to look at what the ratings actually were, but there's always that joke that goes around of like, oh man, the league office really didn't want this. Whenever there's like 2 small teams that are in the final, or when it's one small team versus a big team, it's like, guys, it's live sports. It's still the most popular thing on television, and I guarantee you that these NBA Finals broadcasts are still going to be, within the top 20 most watched things on television this year, only rivaled
Oh,
by
sure,
college and professional football.
sure.
That part is always really funny, and I say that as, frankly, a coastal elite, somebody who moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, and doesn't necessarily, I don't have any really warm, sappy feelings about Montana. It is absolutely great that it is 2 small market teams, especially considering that it's the crowning achievement of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's career, obviously, and he's been not at it forever, but he's been at it long enough that it's nice that he's finally gotten to this level. And Tyrese Halliburton, especially after it's a great story for him after being called the most overrated player in the league,
Yes.
which is kind of funny to considering that I looked it up, and he's been top 10 in advanced metrics in the league for the past few years. It's really kind of a media failure that nobody actually talks about the Pacers. That's kind of on us, so to speak, not on him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
Hmm.
other news around the NBA, the Knicks fired their coach. I
That's
mean,
a ridiculous move.
this franchise, the car ran out of gas. So instead of refilling it, they set the car on fire and just walked home. I mean, it's ridiculous what they did with Thibodeau, and maybe Knicks fans are happy about it, but
And did you see
the
that
Knicks also.
story? The story that came out minutes after they lost game six, I think it was, and like where where the press was saying it's like, well, multiple people were really unhappy with Karl Anthony Towns on defense, and it's like, wow, guys, Jesus, you know, like as somebody else on Twitter said, it's like the body's not even cold.
The body's not even cold.
Yeah,
I don't know what the Knicks are doing. Me personally, I think what we just saw from this iteration of this Knicks team is their ceiling. I don't think. I mean, they got so lucky the Celtics just not playing up to their potential. That won't happen again. They'll get Tatum back for the postseason next year. And now that will be a long rehab process for Tatum, but he'll be back. The Cavs will reload and be back. So it's really hard to get there. And the fact that they didn't do it this year, I don't think they're going to do it at all in the next few years.
yeah, I'd agree, especially because, and I'd have to imagine you're a Celtics fan as well, but I think you'd also agree that the Celtics are in a better position to win without their best player than just about any team in the NBA. It's noted that the other four of the starting five of that team is an excellent basketball team.
Oh,
So,
sure. And
I
it
think they
helps
can
they have
get to 40 wins without Tatum. Or
it helps
yeah,
it helps they have Joe Mazzulla as well, who's just an excellent coach. Who wildest fun note I've ever seen for any coach. He watches the movie The Town once a week in full. I mean, that's
he's
psychotic.
he's
That is
such an
psychotic
insane person.
behavior.
I,
That is psychotic behavior.
this is not original commentary from us, and I don't mind it. This guy Joe Mazzulla has got to be the craziest person to ever be the head coach of an American sports team. I
I
mean,
mean,
like
it's insane.
aside from like that guy who lied about serving in Nam or something, like it's just he like you remember like when everybody made fun of Kyle Shanahan because he made that quote of like, well, I don't know whether we're all going to wake up tomorrow. It was
Yes.
like an incredibly that's every Joe Mazzulla quote. He's like,
Yeah.
I threaten to kidnap my team's children if they don't make their threes. I also threaten to kidnap them if they decide to take it too. Like, so,
Yeah. And I wonder, you know, because the town moves around on streaming services, so I'm sure Missoula can obviously afford all of them, but yeah, does is he going home after practice and he walks through the front door, throws his keys on the counter, gets a drink and says, "Time for the town." I mean, when does this guy find the time to watch it in full?
I'd have to imagine because so I'll tell you a really stupid fun fact about me. Since the movie Glengarry Glen Ross became free on YouTube, I have probably watched it more than 20 times. And I had seen it before. I had seen it multiple times before. I'd probably already seen the movie a good 3 to 5 times before it became free on YouTube. And then it just became like I would put it on in the background of doing anything. Long story short, I don't think this guy is like getting a thing of popcorn and watching The Town every week. I think he's probably putting on The Town in the background while he's watching film or something, which, as I say it, sounds even more psychotic than the original story.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, no, yeah, it's not something that I know people love movies. Heck,
Mm-hmm.
one of my buddies, back when we were younger, go to the bars down in Southern California, and he would just get trashed, and he would watch Gladiator on his phone, and that was like a routine thing he did. I don't understand it.
That's a pretty intense. I would have some questions about whether your friend was doing okay when he was hitting up a bunch of
just,
bars.
just
And
turn on Gladiator.
incredible, yeah. Um, yeah, Celtics will be fine. I do think. Do I think the Knicks have a chance to repeat anything like this? I would have to agree because it kind of felt like they were putting together a bunch of pieces that didn't necessarily seem championship caliber to begin with, and then it was like, oh, they are vastly overperforming. But that's the thing, overperformance eventually stops. I don't think they have a championship core. I don't see Jalen Brunson as a championship player. I don't. Um, Carl Anthony Towns is very, very good, but I'd be surprised if he's a championship level player. He just kind of feels like one of those, David Robinson tier guys in the history of the NBA,
Sure,
where
sure,
where it's like they're
sure,
tremendous, but you don't expect it.
sure. One of the funnier players in the NBA as well in Cat, but yeah, maybe the next
Yeah,
get back to the maybe the next get back to the conference finals. Maybe they don't, but I just have a hard time seeing them win four straight series and lift the title. It's just I can't even visualize it.
no, it's yeah, it doesn't exactly pass the confetti test as we talked about before. All right, well, is there anything else you wanted to get to?
I did want to talk about Adam Schefter trying to soft launch a draft lottery for the NFL on
What?
yeah, I don't know if you saw that after about a week after
No.
the draft. Yeah, about a week after the draft, Adam Schefter just out of the blue tweeted a draft lottery in the NFL would be electric. Now, uh, is that Adam Schefter's personal opinion? Is this the NFL working through Schefter to test the waters and gauge the temperature of the NFL fan base? But it would be an awful idea.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad we're in agreement on this. Yeah, no, the draft lottery is terrible, and
No,
also,
Duran, it is awful. I mean, I don't even know what I would do if the Patriots went 0-17 and got pick number 4. I would crash out.
oh yeah, you'd absolutely crash out. And I mean, listen, reasonable things have been said on both sides of this issue, but the fact of the situation is that more people than ever before, including possibly LeBron James, believe that the NBA draft lottery is rigged. And
Yeah, I mean,
circumstantially, it's hard to deny. So, if nothing else, the NFL adopting a draft lottery at this exact time, as gambling is becoming a bigger part of the league, and a whole bunch of other things are starting to happen. If that's coming from the owners, it's the worst idea they've had since the last idea they had. Actually, the 17 game season and this expanded playoff format have all sucked. So, um, oh god, I'm going to turn into an old head who thinks that 2005 football was the best kind of football. Oh lord, that's not good.
yeah, but Duran, do you think it's the NFL speaking through Schefter, trying to gauge the temperature, or do you think Schefter
I think it was
just
one
decide,
owner. I think it was one
or do you,
owner who wants to
or
float
do you
the
think
idea.
Schefter decided to just tweet his opinion on the matter?
Oh, I don't think it's his opinion. I don't think any reasonable person thinks that the lottery would be a good idea. Which is why I think it was. I think it was one of the owners. I think it was one of the owners probably let him know
Which
that.
owner would this be?
I don't
I'm
know. I
curious.
don't know.
Let's,
Oh, well, it's
Jerry?
got to.
Could it be Jerry?
Jerry would be hilarious. I'd believe Jerry because if it were Jerry, that would mean he could keep putting out mediocre teams and eventually
Exactly.
get a number one pick.
I
Like
think
he would
we
never
just
have to
solved
bottom
it.
out.
The case closed. It's Jerry Jones.
It's Jerry. I could go with is it Haslam who owns the Browns? I could believe Haslam.
Yeah, Haslam as well.
And you know what? Teams on the other side of that equation as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Bisciotti said this. And it's like, yeah,
Sure,
like
sure.
another, or the owners of the Roonies. The teams. All of this has got to be coming from one of the teams that consistently wins 10 games and doesn't win the Super Bowl. It's got to be coming from them.
Arthur Blank in Atlanta.
Yeah, it could be coming. It could be coming from any of them. I just don't think all of the owners are stupid enough for that to have like a big majority.
I would hope
interest.
not.
God,
I would hope
we
not.
can only pray, Kyle. We can
No.
only pray. All right, well, I'm going to call it there, and this has been another invigorating and fun recording of Away Game, and it's only our third episode, but we will certainly be recording more episodes as the NFL season comes to a close. Kyle, plug yourself. Tell everybody where they can hear you and when.
Sure. So I host a daily sports talk show with the Ace Sports Radio at 107.9 FM, 1300 AM. If you ever find yourself here in Southern Oregon or you're just driving through, I can be heard online as well at theasportsradio.com.
Very, very nice. Are you 5 days a week now?
It changes. Sometimes I'm 4, sometimes I'm 5.
Gotcha. I see. All right. Well, yep. Tune into Aces Radio to hear Kyle talk about sports, and you can get more of this. All right. Talk to everybody later. Good night.